Good morning and welcome to the King Institute for Faith and Culture. This morning we have a time-honored tradition at King. Since 1960, every year faculty have selected two rising seniors to give what are called the student lectures. We've chosen people from all different majors and all different backgrounds, and it's been a joy to hear people talk about something that interests them and something they love. And this morning's lecture, Sidney Bailey, I'll leave the introduction to Kelly Vaughn. I do want to give you an announcement or two first, because we have two more events coming up this week and one next week. We're going to have a pretty crowded schedule. Tomorrow we have rescheduled the Martin Luther King observance that was supposed to be last week, or 2 weeks ago, but it was too snowy to run. So our MLK events are going to be tomorrow evening at Lee Street Baptist Church at 7 p.m. Our speaker is Natasha Sistrunk Robinson. Natasha is a U.S. Navy graduate and former Marine who worked for the Department of Homeland Security, then went to seminary, and now is a leadership consultant and is finishing a PhD in theology. Natasha will be with us here on campus the following morning. So Wednesday during chapel at 9:15, she'll speak in here, also as part of our MLK observance. I do want to point out that for the Tuesday night and Wednesday morning event, she has requested that everybody be masked. And so if you're going to attend one of those events, please don't forget to bring a mask with you. The following week, we observe Black History Month. On Monday, February 7th, we bring Dr. Bill Turner. Bill is a very well-respected scholar in the field of African American history in Appalachia. He was Alex Haley's assistant for 10 years, who wrote Roots, if you know that book or series. He taught at Berea College for years, and he was the provost and interim president at Kentucky State. So we're delighted to have him on our schedule on February 7th, so next Monday there's another opportunity to be here. But for today, we are delighted to have our student lecture. Happy to have you here, and I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Vaughn.
Thanks, Martin. And it's my pleasure today to introduce one of our rising stars and our senior, Sidney Bailey. And I'd like to welcome her mom and her nana and her brothers and the rest of her family who are joining us remotely today. So I first knew Sidney when she came to King. I knew her as a high-achieving athlete, student, hardworking, and active in many parts across campus. In fact, Sidney may be one of the most recognizable student faces on campus, after she's been spearheading the team of teaching assistants that drives the Foundations in Religion class for the past several years. And while many of us may know Sidney, I suspect there are much fewer that really know her and what drives her and where her heart lies. And after today, I think we'll all have a better taste of that. It wasn't until this summer when she joined my research lab that I really realized how remarkable Sidney is. We first connected sharing stories about growing up in the Appalachian Mountains on our small family farms where we've been for the past 10 generations. Then she casually mentioned that she and her grandmother and her family had been instrumental in starting and providing free medical care in a clinic in her hometown of Mendota, and that she was spending a significant amount of her time, in addition to working in the lab and being TAs and being a softball player and all the other things that Sidney does, helping running that clinic and another one. And she'll tell you more about those today. At King, we live by our mission statement of being a part of a community that excels as thoughtful, resourceful, responsible citizens with a passion for serving God, the church, and the community. And in doing so, we strive to help our students find their vocation. Sidney has always known what her calling is. She's called to come home to the mountains to provide the medical care and love and support for her community and her family. Sidney really exemplifies the liberal arts tradition that is King. Majoring in biology with minors in religion and in Spanish, she brings all of those together in all she does. She further embodies the examples and it provides an example for the characteristics we work so hard to instill in our students. Our job has simply been to help guide her along the way, to enable her to grow with each opportunity and challenge that she faces. We are called to love and support others, and in that, Sydney shines. Like many of the other faculty, I'm blessed beyond measure to work with so many extraordinary students. I'm incredibly proud of all Sydney has done and look forward to see what she accomplishes in the future. And I welcome you today to hear more about Sydney and what drives her. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vaughn, for that introduction. I'm so thankful for you, everything you've done for me. Thank you to the King Institute of Faith and Culture for giving me this opportunity to talk to you guys today. I'm so proud and I'm so honored. And thank you to the faculty and staff that voted for me to speak. If it's terrible and you guys hate it, it's their fault, not mine. So, okay. So, a little bit about me. So, my name is Sydney. I'm a senior. And like Dr. Vaughn said, I'm a biology major, and I have minors in biblical studies and Spanish. So, you can probably find me on campus in Dr. Vaughn's office. I'm probably crying on her couch about something. Or if I'm not there, you can check room 212 in Whitehall. See you four there later this afternoon. Or I'm probably in the research lab working with nematodes. I've probably accidentally killed them all with bleach, but it's all in the name of research, you know. So, what many of you guys don't know about me is I am actually from a very, very small town called Mendota. And if you actually Google Mendota and you look on their Wikipedia page, it's so small that it's actually considered an unincorporated village. So, there's about 250 people scattered for about 35 miles of land. And as you can see from these pictures, it's one of the prettiest places I've ever seen in my life. It's nestled in a valley in the Clinch Mountains, and it sits on the North Fork of the Holston River. And it's very isolated. It's about 45 minutes away from the nearest hospital, from the nearest grocery store or gas station, any kind of civilization. So my family has been there for about 10 generations, like Dr. Vaughn said. I am a proud Appalachian. My family's been here for a very long time, and I have no desire to leave Appalachia. But I've painted this picture-perfect view of a quaint small town, but what I haven't let you guys know is there is a severe socioeconomic imbalance between Mendota residents and residents within the rest of Washington County, Virginia. So if we actually take a look at it, residents of Mendota remain as some of the poorest people in Washington County and in Southwest Virginia. If we look at it from a regional scale, Central Appalachia actually remains as one of the poorest regions in the nation. And being one of those areas in the United States that is very low on the socioeconomic ladder, it's led to a severe lack of education and resources towards healthcare. And that lack of healthcare has really inspired me. So, the title of my talk today is A Three-Stranded Cord: The Integration of Faith, Medicine, and Compassion. So one of the wonderful things about King is it provides students with opportunities to attend lectures and convocations by distinguished individuals in different fields of study. So I didn't actually realize the impact of that until here recently. And it's kind of shocking that it took me 4 years to figure that out. But I'm here today to talk about one of those lectures. So I attended in October a lecture by King alumni Maria Liston. And Maria Liston is a doctor of anthropology at the University of Waterloo. and she specializes in skeletal biology, Greek archaeology, and biological anthropology. And so for those of you that don't know what those are, those fields, Dr. Liston and her team, they specialize and they focus on the remains of ancient people, and they are tasked with determining the cause of death. And once they've established a cause of death, they then look at the cultural implications surrounding those deaths of those ancient people. So as you can see from the picture, there's Dr. Liston with bones from one of her digs. So this lecture in October, she talked about her research in the city of Thebes, which is in Greece. And her team, they were tasked with examining 2 mass graves on the outskirts of the city. And in those graves, there were about 40 to 50 bodies. And so Dr. Liston and her team were there to figure out why they died. And as they began looking at these bones, they saw signs of chronic illness and infectious disease. Some of these bones had cancerous growths on them. Some of them had hardened joints, which suggested rheumatoid arthritis. Some of them had fractures. Some had early signs of leprosy. And there were many other skeletal abnormalities with some of these bones. And although none of them died of the same cause, Dr. Liston and her team were able to group them all into the category of death by disease. So as they began looking a little bit closer at these bones in the graves, they found a couple of artifacts. They found some coins and some pottery in the graves. And they dated these artifacts and these bones to about 1,900 years old, which is very old. And based on some of those artifacts, they were able to determine that these people were likely alive during the time of legal Christianity in the Roman Empire, the early days of legal Christianity. And as they began taking a closer look at the actual grave itself, they found remnants of an ancient temple. So she got with some experts in that field of study, and it's determined that likely this was the remains of an ancient temple to the god Apollo. So in Greek mythology, we're told that the god Apollo is a god of healing. So he is tasked with healing. So we have people who showed signs of sickness buried at the base of a temple dedicated to a god of healing. And what's interesting, though, is directly beside these mass graves and beside this temple, there lays a church. And this church actually still stands today. And this church is dedicated to the Apostle Luke. He's pictured above. Now, Paul tells us in Colossians that Luke is the beloved physician. So you can see where she's going with this. We have sick people who are buried at the base of a temple dedicated to a god of healing. And then we have them directly beside a church dedicated to the apostle who's called the physician. So Dr. Maria Liston and her team have discovered one of the earliest Christian hospitals in the world. So for me, I've always wanted to be a doctor. I've known that since I was young. That was fascinating for me. And originally, I'd always thought that there was no room for religion in science. Oftentimes, we're told it's one or the other. It creates this false dichotomy of you either pick science or religion. And I thought there was no room for a relationship between the two. But this lecture by Dr. Liston showed me that there was something there. This was 1,900 years ago. And there was a relationship there. And so I did some digging, and this is a couple of the things that I found. So a physician is a person who cures moral or spiritual ills. They're a healer. And the word heal is seen 42 times in the New International Version of the Bible. The word healing is used 27 times. Healed is used 72 times, and cured is seen 10 times. And that's 151 instances where healing is brought to our most sacred text as Christians. 151 instances. And that's seen throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. And even in Exodus, the second book of the Bible, God identifies himself to his people as a God who heals you, a Lord who heals. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. So a couple of examples in the Old Testament. These are just a few that I've picked out. But we see in Genesis, the first book of the Bible, Sarah is infertile, and God actually opens her womb, and he cures her, and she conceives Isaac. In Numbers chapter 21, the Israelites are struggling with venomous snake bites, and Moses calls to God to ask for help. And God tells Moses that he needs to craft a bronze snake, and all those who look at the bronze snake will be healed. And then we see in 2 Kings chapter 5, Naaman the general, who's very good at his job. He's a good soldier and a good general. He has leprosy, and he's healed of his leprosy by bathing in the river Jordan 7 times. So we see the Old Testament healings. They show us as God as the ultimate healer. God heals his people. So if we look at some examples from the New Testament, and these are just a few, we see many of Jesus' miracles. Jesus heals many people. In fact, 77% of the miracles performed by Christ were healing or resurrection based. That's 34 out of 44 documented miracles. So that's a lot, and they're based in healing. The New Testament healings show us as Jesus as the divine physician, someone who is moved by compassion. He oftentimes healed people that were deemed unclean or ostracized by their society, and he was moved by compassion. So, compassion, the word compassion actually means to suffer with. And I like to think that Jesus inherited this quality of compassion from his ancestors Ruth and Boaz. So compassion is highlighted to us early in the Old Testament with the book of Ruth. And the book of Ruth serves as a counterpart to the book of Judges, which is a time period for the Israelites of turmoil and distress. And they are plagued with wars, and bad things happen to them. And the book of Ruth serves as its counterpart as to show us what could essentially happen in a more perfect world or society. So Ruth, who's a Moabite and an immigrant, she is married to an Israelite. And her husband dies, and her brother-in-law dies, and her father-in-law dies. And she refuses to leave her mother-in-law, Naomi, and she shows her true character as a compassionate woman. She's willing to suffer with Naomi together and be with her during that painful period. In turn, later on, Boaz, who is an Israelite, shows Ruth, who is an immigrant woman, kindness, and he ends up marrying her. And ultimately, they become the great-grandparents of King David and the ancestors of Jesus. So ideally, this book shows us how important it is to show compassion and kindness to others, because you do reap the benefits of showing compassion and kindness. And when we look at physicians and compassion, compassionate care calls physicians to walk with people in the midst of their pain and form this partnership with their patients to reach maximum healing. And so that's really important. And as you can see, faith and healing and medicine have gone back 2,500 years ago as examples in the Bible and examples that I've pulled out for you. They've always been connected. And as Ecclesiastes tells us, a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. So when we have these 3 pillars together, it makes medicine and the field of medicine even stronger. So what does that cord, that 3-stranded cord, look like today? So one of the organizations that I've been blessed with volunteering with and had the opportunity to interact with is the Health Wagon. So the Health Wagon is a nonprofit charity organization that administers medical care and resources to Southwest Virginians and Appalachians. It is completely nonprofit, so none of the patients are billed for any of these services. It was founded in the 1980s by Sister Bernie Kinney of the Medical Missionaries of Mary, and she was in a Catholic order in Richmond, Virginia. So she actually had a van, and she traveled around the back roads of Southwest Virginia, and she administered medical care to residents that were so isolated they couldn't receive any medical treatment. And she did this for a while until she actually fully founded the Health Wagon. The Health Wagon is actually the oldest mobile medical service, and has the largest outreach of its kind anywhere in Appalachia. It's also the very first service to team up with NASA and administer medications via drone to isolated regions in Appalachia. So that's a pretty cool, interesting fact about them. Today, Sister Bernie has retired, but the Health Wagon is now led by Dr. Teresa Tyson, and I've actually met her, and she is wonderful. And I've listed on the PowerPoint a couple of their verses that Sister Kinney has accredited with the Health Wagon and its mission, and they all come from Psalms. But as you can see, he heals the brokenhearted and he binds their wounds. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled. O Lord, my God, I cried to you for help, and you have healed me. So these are a couple of the things that she say embody her vision in the Health Wagon. So, as I mentioned in my introduction, I'm from Mendota, and Mendota is one of 3 clinics of the Health Wagon now. And pictured above is Dr. Joe Smitty. He is a pulmonologist, and I've actually had the pleasure to work with him several times. He is actually the primary doctor that my family and I reached out to reopen our health clinic in Mendota and be sponsored by the Health Wagon. Dr. Smitty is a pulmonologist, so he examines lung diseases and chronic lung illnesses, and especially amid this pandemic, he's been very busy with trying to help a lot of people in Appalachia receive treatment for COVID-related lung issues. I've also worked under a family nurse practitioner named Ethan Collins. He is the primary practitioner at the Mendota Health Clinic now, where he's in charge of binding wounds, stitches, giving medications, things like that, and I've actually worked closely with him. Mendota has had a clinic since the early 90s, but due to that lack of available practitioners and low income and low education rates, we've had trouble keeping the clinic open. And so it's opened and closed several times until recently when we've got it back open with the Health Wagon. So a physician is someone that chooses to go to these areas where there's sick people and injured people. They choose to go there. And like I mentioned, the Health Wagon's a completely nonprofit organization where it's funded by volunteers, and most of the services are provided by volunteers. So a physician and the job is not for people who value commission and comfort over the service to and for others. And the Health Wagon really embodies that statement. It's not for people who are in it for money. It's for people that want to serve others. And physicians ultimately act as partners of God and with God, and their work is holy. And it would be a shame to keep faith and compassion and medicine separate, to build a wall of separation. It would be a shame, because to reach the maximum benefits and to reach the maximum potential of the field, you would never do that if you cut faith and compassion out of medicine. So, So to tie everything together and to tie the cord together that we've established, King's message is to lead, serve, and achieve, all in order to glorify God. And in order to properly do that, we must make others feel and see God through ourselves. My call to serve has always been healing. I've always felt this pull to go into medicine and to heal. And what better way for me to glorify God than to be a partner with God in one of his most miraculous acts, healing. And King has really granted me this opportunity to pursue these two paths of study, religion and science, that I thought were not supposed to mix together. They were supposed to remain separate. But upon the research that I've done, I can actually see that they've been a lot more interconnected than I previously had known. And I think that's something that's very cool. And I hope this lecture has kind of provided you with a little bit of insight of faith and compassion and medicine are supposed to be together. And a three-stranded cord is made when the three are together. And again, it's not easily broken. Braided together, it's not easily broken. I don't think I would have realized this connection if I hadn't come to King and if I hadn't been a part of the science department and the religion department as well. And it makes me more aware as a person who wants to enter the medical field that I want to be someone with a cord that's not easily broken. I want to be someone that incorporates and glorifies God in every way I can. And the best way that I feel I can do that is to incorporate compassion and faith into my field of study, medicine. So thank you very much.
So in the long tradition of the Institute and with our student speakers, we'd like to present Sydney with a plaque to commemorate today. A lot of nerves and anxiety and preparation went into her standing in front of you. So she'll look at this and remember the relief she felt when she was done. So thank you, Sydney, for sharing your message with us all and really exemplifying what we are trying to teach at King. So congratulations, my dear. Thank you all.